I came to give you a flower, but you, my dear, are the garden itself. Rabindranath Tagore. Have you ever loved someone before you saw their face? Have you ever felt a connection so deep it reached you through ink and paper, through words whispered across distance, through a voice you've never heard but a soul you somehow knew? Today's story is about a man who learned that sometimes love doesn't begin with beauty, it begins with truth. This is the story of a soldier, a rose, and a test that revealed the heart's greatest secret. True love begins with the soul, not the eyes. It was spring in New York. Grand Central Station pulsed with life. Heels clicking, trains roaring, lovers embracing, strangers hurrying past each other, as if the world held too much to do and too little time. But at the center of the chaos stood one man, utterly still. Captain John Blanchard, fresh from the war, dressed in uniform, a single red rose pinned to his jacket. The world rushed around him, but he waited, heart pounding like a drum in his chest, eyes scanning the sea of faces for a woman he had never seen. A woman whose soul he knew better than his own reflection. Her name was Hollis Maynell, and tonight, at exactly 7 o'clock, their fate would step out of anonymity into the light. Months earlier, in a dusty library in Florida, John had found a book. Old, forgotten, its spine cracked, its pages yellowed by time. But inside, scattered through the chapters, were notes written in delicate handwriting. Gentle, insightful, hopeful, kind. It felt as though someone had left their heart between the margins. John read those notes again and again. He didn't know if he admired the book or the soul behind it. And then he found her name, Hollis Maynell. Driven by a feeling he couldn't explain, he wrote her a letter, a simple, honest letter, thanking her for her thoughts and confessing how deeply her words had touched him. To his amazement, she replied. One letter became two, two became 10. Soon their words crossed oceans, from battlefield tents filled with fear to her quiet home filled with a gentler kind of silence. John wrote about the war, the loneliness between battles, the hope her letters gave him. Hollis wrote about life, about kindness, about the books she loved and the world she dreamed of. Their letters became a sanctuary, a small world where they both belonged. As months passed, John found himself falling in love with the mind he had come to know. So he asked her for a photograph. Hollis refused. She wrote, "If you care for me, it must be for my thoughts, not my face." She didn't want to be judged by appearance. She wanted a love built on understanding, not on image. And John respected that. But inside his heart, a quiet fear lived. What if I'm disappointed? What if she is disappointed in me? Still, he knew he had to meet her. So when the war ended and John returned home, they decided on a date, a time, and a symbol. Grand Central Station, 7 p.m., a red rose. Hollis wrote, "You will know me by the red rose I wear." John pinned his rose to his jacket and prayed his heart could carry the truth waiting for him on the platform. At exactly 7 o'clock, John stood still amid the rushing crowd. Then, through the blur of bodies, he saw her. A young woman, tall, graceful, golden hair cascading beneath the station lights, a pale green suit that made her look like a breath of spring in the middle of a storm. Her eyes were blue, bright, alive with youth and hope. She walked at exactly 7 o'clock. John stood still amid the rushing crowd. Then, through the blur of bodies, he saw her, a young woman, tall, graceful, golden hair cascading beneath the station lights, a pale green suit that made her look like a breath of spring in the middle of a storm. Her eyes were blue, bright, alive with youth and hope. She walked toward him with a soft, inviting smile. John felt warmth rise in his chest. Here she was. Here was his Hollis. His steps moved forward on their own, until something stopped him. Behind the beautiful young woman, another figure appeared. An older woman, gray hair gently curled, simple coat, slight stoop in her posture, humble, quiet, alone. And on her coat, glowing softly beneath the station lights, was a single red rose. The young woman in green walked past him and melted into the crowd like a dream dissolving. John froze. His fantasy slipped away instantly, but the truth stood before him. This older woman, this stranger, was Hollis Maynell, the woman whose words had held him through war, the woman whose letters had become his anchor, the woman he had fallen in love with for her mind and heart. His heart squeezed painfully, not in disappointment, but in fear. Am I good enough? Do I deserve the soul who wrote those letters? He straightened his shoulders and made the choice that revealed the quality of his heart. John walked toward the older woman, smiled warmly, and saluted. "Ma'am," he said gently, "I'm Captain John Blanchard. Would you do me the honor of joining me for dinner?" For a moment, the woman looked deeply into his eyes. Then she smiled, a soft, knowing smile, and said, "Son, I don't know what this is about." John blinked, confused. Then she continued, "The woman in the green suit, the one who just passed by, she asked me to wear this rose." John felt his breath catch. "She told me," the woman said, "if the man you're meeting invites me to dinner, tell him I'm waiting for him at the restaurant across the street. This was only a test." She touched his arm softly. "Some people love with their eyes, but the heart sees differently." John smiled, wide, relieved, grateful, not because the beautiful young woman was waiting for him, but because he had passed the test he didn't know he was taking. He had chosen character over appearance, soul over beauty, truth over illusion. He walked out of the station with hope beating in his chest and love waiting across the street. And that night, he learned, true love begins not with the eyes, but with the heart. There is a moment in every love story where the heart reveals what it truly values. John didn't know he was being tested, but his choice said everything about who he was beneath the uniform, beneath the nerves, beneath the hope. And maybe you've felt that test too. Life often places someone in front of us who challenges our assumptions about beauty, about attraction, about value. Sometimes we're asked, quietly, invisibly, to choose between what dazzles the eyes and what nourishes the soul. John chose the soul, not because he was perfect, but because somewhere inside him, he understood that love built on appearance is love waiting to break. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about the people who left lasting marks on your heart. Was it their face you remember? Or their honesty, their character, their kindness, the way they made you feel understood? Love becomes real the moment beauty is no longer the reason for staying. The story of the red rose whispers a truth we forget too easily. The right person will never ask you to earn their love with perfection. They will meet you with recognition, the kind that begins in the heart and grows outward. So when life places you in front of choices between appearance and authenticity, between sparkle and sincerity, between fantasy and truth, let your heart choose the rose, not the petals. Because petals fade, but the rose, the soul, endures. And someday, someone will choose you for the depth you carry, not the image you wear.
May you always recognize the kind of love that sees you for who you are, not how you appear. Every story is a whisper of life. May yours be one that spreads kindness,